Mantour Ministries presents the Mantour Guy Podcast. We may talk about football. We could mention bacon. We might reference Rocky movies. We'll probably discuss the Mantour conferences, but we'll definitely talk about how to grow in our walk with God. Here's your host, the Mantour Guy, Jamie Holden.
Guys, welcome back to the Mantour Guy Podcast. We're so happy to have you join us once again here today. Well, today we're excited to continue our discussion with one of my favorite people, Tom Rees. Tom is a men's ministry director for the Pendel Ministry Network. He's also the director for Pendel's U.S. Missions and also the director of church development. He's a real busy guy. He has been a huge influence on me and my ministry. He's someone I know I can always count on. So let's rejoin the discussion with Tom as we look once again at courageous manhood. Well, let's continue looking at the 5 areas of courageous manhood. The 4th area is that a courageous man breaks generational cycles. Can you explain to the men who aren't familiar with what this term of generational cycles is, how to break it? And can you share some steps to help them identify and break these cycles? Not many people are familiar with the term breaking generational cycles.
Yeah, when you look at this in a faith way, it's a powerful concept. And so what I'm referring to in a generational cycle, and when I talk about this goes back to, we're talking about 30 years ago when I sat down with that counselor. And I sat down with that counselor and I was sharing with him some of the stuff that I was dealing with in my life. Specifically, I remember just being in a situation where I was driving to church and a woman cut in front of me. And I got so angry at her. And I just thought to myself, where in the world did that come from? Just all she did was cut in front of me. It's not like she, just committed an unpardonable sin or anything. And I got so upset and that anger. And remember when I told you about my family of origin and that anger? And that was one of those things that, a generational thing. And so I'm like, in my life, I need to break some patterns. And so, that's one of those patterns that I needed to deal with, was that I can't be living. I don't want to be an angry man. I want to be a man that lives and is able to live with the fruit of the Spirit in my life. That's one of the most, let me speak to this. I've talked to different people that have said, you know what? Yeah, I see my dad. He serves at church and he does a great job at church and everybody loves him and he's so friendly. But he gets home and he sits in that recliner, turns on the TV, and he's a bump on the log. And then the only time he gets up is when he's yelling at somebody, he's angry at something. And I'm just like, dear God, help us not to be angry men. They make movies about that, grumpy old men, grumpier old men too, and I think I don't want to be a grumpy old man. I want to break these cycles in my life. And so God help me to have a different spirit. And with that, just recognizing that God can help us to break those. Because what it is it's one sin is visited to the next generation. And what I've recognized is I've got to get this right. There's generational cycles that continue to emerge from one generation to another. They're just handed down. And so you see it. Some of those generational cycles are eating habits. That you grow up in a certain way, and if you don't break the cycle, you're going to do the same thing, and you're going to die from some of the same things your parents have died from. So you're going to see same issues with diabetes, same issues with heart disease, and all those things. Now, understand there's a genetic disposition towards some of those things, but there's some things that we can. Remember when we talked about that very first component of courage is taking responsibility. There's certain things I can't change. My dad's had 20-some stents in his heart. That's absolutely crazy. I talked to his cardiologist last time I was in Florida when he was in the hospital, and his cardiologist said to me, he said, I've never seen somebody that every year there's another major heart issue that he has to deal with. And then I smiled. I looked at him. I said, what does that mean for me? He said, it doesn't mean good things for you. He said, there's certain genetic things that are passed down. And so that's why in my own life, I've had to make adjustments in what I eat, my exercise. This morning I got up, I rode my bike a little bit this morning. I hit the gym yesterday after work. I mean, again, I just need to make sure that I'm taking care of the things I can change. I can't deal with the things that I can't touch, but I can change some of those things. I'm breaking those generational patterns. In addition to that, there's generational patterns of immorality that have been passed. So, when I was a junior hire for family vacation, get this, family vacation, we went to the Playboy Club for family vacation.
Wow.
Let me just tell you, that doesn't exactly set you up for for good wholesome thinking. And so I know that when I got saved, I had to deal with and just say, God, I want to walk in purity. And so even in my own life, there's certain things that I say, I can't allow exposure to these things, because just like an alcoholic, can't touch a drink because you're going to go back into that cycle. I just need to make sure that I'm walking in a way that doesn't allow anger and immorality and all those things to cycle into my life. And so those are huge things. And guys, I'm being transparent with you. You're like, really? Wow, I just thought maybe you grew up in this wholesome Christian environment. No, God got a hold of my life, and He's been cleaning me up ever since. And the reality is that we live in a world. I had Jim Comenzo do a workshop for us once, and how do you live clean in an unclean world? And he just said, he said it's like we're pigs and we're in a pig pen. What we've got to do is we've got to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to walk in this world. And so there's things that I do in my life. For instance, guys, one of the things that I do, here's just a practical side of that. There's an app that we use, and we use it with our Roku device. So we cut the cord, by the way, on cable. We're saving like $50-$60 a month on that bill, and we just get internet, and then we play everything through Roku, and I have Netflix and Amazon Prime. But we've added a few years ago, we added a thing called VidAngel. VID, like short for video, Angel, VidAngel. Costs me $8 a month. And what it is that I connect my streaming services to it. So Amazon Prime and Netflix are connected to it. So, the latest TV show that came out on that, on I think it was Amazon Prime, is Jack Ryan. And so, and that's, I love the Jack Ryan movies with Air Force One and Clear and Present Danger and things like that. And so, so when that came out, I wanted to see it. But, one of the concerns that I had was with it, there's a lot of language in it. And remember, I talked about that anger. I don't want to put those words in my spirit. And so with that, I'm able to set on this different filters. And so I'm able to filter out. So let me just, I'm going to just be real practical with you guys on this. So when I look at Tom Clancy's first Jack Ryan, here's the filters. And people go, oh, it's really good. There's not a whole lot in it. Okay. Well, let me just tell you that 6 times in the first episode, they take the Lord's name in vain. In addition to that, there's 30 other profanities that are used. So when I look at that and go, okay, that's words that I don't want to hear. So what happens is when I hook it up and run it through VidAngel and I've got my filters set, it will block out those words. So it just mutes the words. Now, again, I'm not naive here. You could read some lips, but the reality is that with 37 words, there's a lot of stuff that I'm missing in profanity that I just don't want to be exposed to in my life. There's other filters and other shows that where, if it's something that's not appropriate dress or attire, we've set the filters to not allow those kind of things. So there's a whole filter on nudity and sex, and we're able to set filters, and it just totally takes it all out and you don't see it. Let me just say that I think that what's happened is that we've been the frog in the kettle, and as the impurity has gone up around us in language and I hear it, and I've actually heard it. I've heard national speakers, fortunately not AG speakers, but I've heard national speakers on the circuit in Christian conferences that will use profanity. I'm like, how in the world is that right? Well, the reality is that when we allow stuff into our spirit all the time, whatever we're putting in is going to come out. And God help us that it doesn't come out because we're not putting it in anymore. So the frog in the kettle says we're just going to continue to allow ourselves to kind of be boiled slowly with impurity and immorality. VidAngel gives us an opportunity to have some controls on those things. And so check it out, guys. And, again, it's worth it for us to not have those types of things, even when you're talking about it at home. It's stuff that's set up that we're able to, our kids come over and their families, and we're able to just, watch something and laugh, and it's good, but at the same time, it filters out anything that's just not good. Anyway, just a thought, guys, just a thought.
And it's true, and we have to know our generational bondages and things we have to break in our lives, these cycles. And then for so many men, that is a cycle. They grew up around a lot of immorality and perversion, and we have to break those cycles in our lives. I always think the Bible says, ungodliness goes from generation to generation, but when you start living a godly life, it goes for thousands of generations. We can be the men that stop the bad cycles in our families and start a whole new legacy of godliness. And that's what God's called us to do, and it's part of being a courageous man.
Yep, good stuff.
And then the fifth area of living a courageous man is a courageous man plans for the next seasons of his life. Okay, what do you mean by that? How do we plan for the next season of our life?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually, in terms of with the seasons and thinking through that a little bit, I was looking at the seasons of a man's life, and things I found. I thought it was kind of funny as I looked at it. It's like, here's the seasons of a man's life, and when you look at the seasons of a man's life, when we're a kid, we believe in Santa Claus, and then the next season is we don't believe in Santa Claus, and then the next season after that is that we are Santa Claus. So we're the ones buying the gifts and everything for our kids, and then the last season is we begin to look like Santa Claus. And I just thought, yeah, I understand that. That's it. But the reality is that there are seasons to a guy's life. So we grew up as a kid. And let me just tell you, there are some men that still act like children. They've never grown up. And so, we go from being a child to moving into early childhood. And there's this whole thing that's called adulting, is what they call it. So, it's interesting watching my kids as they go through the different stages of life, and I'm like, yep, you're adulting now. I remember that moment that they began to pay their own auto insurance. Yes, we are adulting, and that was a win. And then the next stage is their own phone bill, and I'm like, yes, they're paying their own phone. They're adulting. And so kind of seeing those stages. But when I look at those stages, so you have early adult, and what happens in the early adult stage is, in the early adult stage, you're trying to figure out your place, your role, all those things, and you're beginning to ask the question. You're beginning to form in early adulthood. You're beginning to form what that dream is. What's that personal vision for your future? That happens in early adults, early adulting. And then when you enter the adult world, you begin to explore, occupations, interpersonal adult roles. Some of you have kids in college, and this part might drive you nuts, but your student, they go to school. It's like Brittany picked a program at Vanguard that was kinesiology. And so, hey, I want to be a physical therapist. Well, in her first semester, she did a work study in a school, and she loved working with the kids. So guess what? she changed her major from kinesiology to being a teacher. And, and so she has she teaches now and has her certification. Courtney at the same time. Courtney went to Vanguard and her major was English. And then she started taking a couple classes with psychology, and she changed it to psychology. I think trying to figure out her family of origin better, and probably trying to figure out just saying, hey, who am I? How am I wired? And she really loved that. And then with that, she ended up transferring back to English and got her degree in English. And she's also a teacher, and now is moved into a role where she's a florist and Winsome Floral. And so, but I see them. This is where they're in that early adult role where they're trying to figure out, where their fit is, what they like to do, what they're passionate about, and so they begin to look at their goals. They begin to ask questions where you're heading, and making adjustments, and keep plugging away. And those are good things. And then what happens is, and that takes you up to around 30. At 30, you're saying, okay, where am I at? Where am I going? The whole bit. And then you move into the settling down part. And as men, Daniel Levinson wrote. He said it's the boom phase. And what the boom phase is, you become one's own man. And in that phase, you just, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm going for. And, and so you've at this point, you've got, your roles have been firmly established. And so, from your mid 30s into 40. And then the next phase is the midlife transition. And this is really, really important, because what happens is, I see a lot of guys that in their life, and maybe you've seen it too, that they live their life up until a certain point, and then they hit that early 40s range, and they begin looking and saying, okay, let me reevaluate my dream. What is this? And, and part of that is it's like halftime. They're looking and saying, okay, we begin to see, even in your 40s, your body starts to decline a little bit, and you begin to recognize your own mortality. You begin to question and reevaluate what that dream is in your life. You do some soul searching. And sometimes I've seen people make career moves, major transitions. I think it's really, really important that we recognize, because we'll have guys that maybe serve in our churches and leadership, and man, they're solid guys. And then they hit this stage, and you're like, what in the world? Why in the world did they have that affair? Why is that happening? And they're just saying, okay, do I want to live the second part of my life the way I've lived the first? And so that's why I think it's important to challenge guys with a greater mission and a greater purpose in their life. Just let's step up and let's step into a greater calling. What does God want us to do with that second half in our life? I think we've got to ask that question, because sometimes we think, okay, this is what this looks like. One of the guys that I really respect is Dwayne Goodling, and Dwayne is a guy, that came to that place in his life, really began looking, and took huge faith risk. He is managing, companies and Jiffy Lubes and working for different companies, and just really felt, what, I want my life to make a difference, and he ended up becoming a missionary, and now. He's a missionary with Think Missions and working with us with Light for the Lost. But I think about that and say, man, there's a guy that stepped into a higher calling. And that doesn't mean you have to quit the job that you're at, but recognizing wherever you're at, God, use this in a greater way. My mechanic, Mark at A&B Automotive, Mark does a great job on working with the cars, and I dropped off the district van to get worked on this morning, and his lot was packed, because he does a great job. He treats people well, but here's one of the things I love about Mark. Mark, he's mentoring young guys, and not only is he mentoring these young guys, but he brings them to the men's conference every year, pays their way to go to the men's conference. And so these guys come, they're sitting and they're hearing the word, and he's challenged them in their faith. And I'm like, there's a guy that, man, in his midlife, he's found a purpose for his life that's greater than just working on cars, because he's mentoring young guys, and that's going to last a lot longer than many of our cars, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point. Okay, so here I am. I'm in my mid 50s, and I'm at this stage where, again, I'm walking in my calling, and I'm being faithful, and I'm thinking, okay, I want to finish well, and I want to finish strong. Preparing for that other phase, one of the things that you do is you look and you say, hey, am I putting any money away for retirement? What's this looking like? Am I thinking through what this is going to look like down the line? Am I going to come to the end of the rope and realize, man, I've never put some money away? By the way, guys, if you're a pastor, maybe tell your pastor about it, because a lot of pastors, they don't make a lot of money, so they don't put a lot into savings. But the Assemblies of God just launched the Center for Leadership and Stewardship Excellence, and this is really exciting. But they've got a fund that will help credentialed ministers get their retirement started, and you can apply for a grant for that. So it's, again, the Center for Leadership and Stewardship Excellence. The website is clse.ag.org. And so let me encourage you, if you're a credential holder, to look into that and to work through that. But for all of us, there's another group that I'm on the board for, his fund, and his fund has an investment. I mean, we're talking about for 5 years, like for a 5-year note, we're talking 4% a year. That's stable, and that's where you put that money in, and that money is being used to invest in churches, and so it's his fund. It works for him, for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But at the same time, it gives a good return for guys that are in my stage, and for some of us, we've got some money in the markets and risk. But then I'm also saying, man, this market keeps going up. And this is what I'm asking. I'm saying at one of these points, what goes up must come down. And I'm like, when the market correction comes, what's that going to look like? And I'm thinking, okay, I need to make sure that I'm not putting all my money at risk. And so being able to make sure I'm diversifying my funds. But when I look at this, I'm at the point right now where a guy gets into 60s, and you have to look at what's your encore going to look like? What's retirement looking like? That next stage is launching your encore. That's a book, by the way, and I recommend it. But with it saying, what do you want to do in the next phase of your life? See, the people that struggle the most in retirement retire from something, but they don't retire to something. So saying, okay, what's this going to look like? What am I going to retire to? So when I look at that, I'm thinking, man, the people that have done the best in retirement are people that have found something that they're able to put their passions into. Because, just sitting around every day and that's going to get old. You need to know, what am I going to put this energy into? And so those are the different phases. Always recognizing we've got to prepare for that next phase. Because if we're here in the now, then we're going to struggle with that. For instance, couples right now that have kids. So we're in the empty nest stage, Sherry and I. So our kids, they've moved out. Courtney and Stephen just moved to Princeton. They were in Argentina for 4 years. They just moved to Princeton. Stephen's starting a graduate program there, and it's great to see them closer. Brittany and Brandon have been in Buffalo, New York for the summer, running a frozen yogurt business. And they come back and move back into the Carlisle area. He'll work at the conference center, and she teaches in the Carlisle School District. And so we're proud of our kids, and we love spending time with them. But the reality is that Sherry and I spend most of our time as empty nesters. So I remember the adjustment when we first went on our first vacation alone without the kids. I felt guilty. I had a 2-bedroom condo, and I'm like, wow, I really wish we would have invited the kids. They could have been in the extra bedroom. One of them at least could have come and hung out, just whatever. And Sherry's like, no, it's kind of good that you and I, are taking time by ourselves. This is a good thing. And it was really, it's been a great thing. We love it now. And when I say we have the 2 bedrooms, we're still in 1 bedroom. We're not using the second one. But I just wanted to go on the record for that one. When we look at these kind of things in our life, many people, they get to where the kids leave the house and they don't know what to do with themselves. So you need to date your wife again and fall in love all over again, and just allow that to happen again. Because what's happened is that many times couples lose their purpose, because the purpose was raising our kids. And now you say, okay, what's the next season of this life going to look like?
Well, guys, we'll be right back with more with Tom right after these messages.
I know you're going to dig this.
Like what you're hearing? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Thanks.
Did you know that over 33% of girls have seen pornography online before the age of 13? Protect your daughters by installing Covenant Eyes on all your computers and mobile devices. Covenant Eyes blocks all pornography so that it can't reach your little girl and cause damage to her spiritually or emotionally. Sign up today using the code MANTOR and receive 1 month of service free. Guys, that's a no-brainer. Try it for a month and see how it helps protect your precious daughters from the filth of internet porn. Sign up using code MANTOR, MANTOUR, at CovenantEyes.com today.
Yep. You're listening to the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Hey guys, Tom Rees here, and I'd like to personally invite you to join me and over 1,400 guys for the 2018 Courage Men's Conference that will be on October 19th and 20th at Trinity Life Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Guys, you don't want to miss this event, as we'll be joined by Jason Friend, Alan Griffin, Joe McGee, Dave Reaver. It's going to be awesome. These guys are going to bring a challenging word that's going to help us to grow in our faith in Christ. The conference is a great place to come and worship God with other men, to be challenged spiritually, to grow in our walk. You don't want to miss it. For more information, visit encouragemensconference.com. And guys, hope to see you there.
Follow the Mantour Guy on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks.
Hey guys, the Mantour Guy, Jamie Holden here. I'd love to come share at your church, at your men's ministry, at your next men's event, or men's breakfast. I have a challenging word for God's men to help them become the men that God has called them to be. If you'd like to have me come share with your group, visit MantourMinistries.com to contact me about coming to challenge and encourage your church's men to grow in their walk with God.
Welcome back to the Mantour Guy Podcast. The Mantour Lead Pipe, right at an ink NFL pick.
Well, switching gears here a little bit, I know you're a big football guy, you're a big Eagles fan growing up in Philly. Who are you picking to go to the Super Bowl this year? Are you sticking with your Eagles? You got some other picks for us this year?
Yeah, I watched the preseason with the Eagles and stuff and was really, really scared. But with this, for me, it's Eagles over Pats again. I think we may. I'm rooting for a rerun of last year's with the victory and all. I mean, game 1 of the season started out the same way it ended last year, with Eagles beating Atlanta, with Matt Ryan had a chance to win it at the end of the game, thrown to his favorite receiver and not working out. I'm thinking, wow, so this new season may look like last season. And so that was good. But, again, I think when Carson Wentz comes back, that's going to put some more fuel in the tank. So I'm really pulling for my Eagles to be back in there and to win over the Pats. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking. Tom Brady, it's tough to root against Tom Brady.
Oh, it's not tough at all. I do it every week. But we did a poll. We did a poll on Facebook last week. Who do you think's going to go to win the Super Bowl? And I did. The first option was the Eagles or the Patriots, and the second option was the field. And the field won by 87%. So that's kind of against your predictions there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality is that you got a lot of Steeler fans in Pendle, um, got a lot of Ravens fans in Potomac, even have a couple Redskin fans in Potomac. But you know, and to be honest, yeah, when you get guys in the Pocono region, you have a lot of them that are coming in from the New York markets, the Giants and the Jets. It'll be interesting to see how Sam Darnold looks this season. But it's interesting. Again, when I drew it and see who's going to be there at the end, boy, I grew up in Philly. I root for all the Philadelphia teams. I'm a homeboy, so I'm gonna put my hopes in that direction again for a return. That would be pretty amazing. I mean, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl this past year, my family, I mean, they looked at me and were like, Dad, how do you feel? And I said that, all my life I've waited for this moment and to see it happen. Now, again, that's where the Steelers and the Patriot fans say, well, it happens to us all the time. And I'm like, good for you guys. But I don't want to live in the past. I want to live in the future. So anyway.
Well, every week we do weekly NFL picks. We pick a couple games and we pick who's going to win them. This week, the first game is going to be my Write It in Ink pick. This is a lock game for me. I think that the Bears are going to beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, with them picking up, just a defensive stud, the Bears, man, I think they got a lot of energy in that tank. They're at home, and because they're at home, I think that the Bears have a really good chance of beating Tampa Bay. So we'll see.
And the second game, I'm picking the Eagles are going to beat the Titans. Everybody is so high on the Titans this year, and I just don't get it. I don't see it. I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. I'm actually going to pick the Eagles in that game. I'm sure you are too, right?
Yeah, I'm a homeboy. Going with my Eagles.
And then the third...
Even that game's in Tennessee, I believe. And so because it's in Tennessee, that'll make them a little bit more favored there. But I'd still go with the Eagles.
I'm just not sold on Mariota. He hasn't shown it yet, and I'm going with the Eagles. Our third game, I always like picking this game. It's one of the best rivalries in the NFL. The Steelers versus the Ravens. I think that game is in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to go with the Steelers. Even though everybody is huge on the Ravens this year, I'm just going to give that one to the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers are at home. They're tough to beat at home. So I would give them the nod because they're at home. If it was in Baltimore, I'd probably go with Baltimore. But since the Steelers are at home, I'd go with the home dogs.
And then finally, the Monday night game is the Chiefs versus my Broncos. And of course, I'm going to go with the Broncos, of course, there. I'm a little worried. Their new rookie quarterback's been looking pretty good. But I think our defense can handle it. I think we're going to win that one pretty easily. So what do you think?
Well, as you know, this summer I did some biking in Denver, and I biked around Mile High Stadium. And let me just tell you that, biking the day, I spent a lot of time biking that weekend. And as I biked through, at the end, I was feeling some altitude sickness. And so I think that the Broncos get the edge because of home field advantage again for that. So it's a good week for the Broncos, and to pick the Broncos because of that advantage.
Okay, so to recap, we have the Bears over Tampa Bay in my Write It in Ink pick. We're picking the Eagles over the Titans, the Steelers over the Ravens, and of course, my Broncos will beat the Chiefs.
It's time for our lightning round.
All right, Tom, what this is I'm going to ask you just a couple quick fun questions for let our listeners get a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So you can just tell us the first answer you think of, and here we go. John Wayne or Clint Eastwood?
John Wayne.
Good answer. College football or the NFL?
NFL.
What's your favorite barbecued food?
Favorite barbecue food? I'd say pulled pork.
All right. What's your favorite?
Brisket.
Brisket. All right. What's your favorite vacation location? Say that fast a few times.
Yeah, Hilton Head.
Okay.
Hilton Head, South Carolina.
What's the last picture you took on your phone?
Last picture I took on my phone was the combination for my combination lock when I went to the gym yesterday because I was afraid that I was going to forget it. So I wanted to at least put it on my phone.
What's something you always wanted to learn to do?
Ski.
Really?
So my kids, they treated me, I had my bucket list a few years ago. They took me to Killington, Vermont. Notice the word Killington starts with kill. The highest mountain. I did not know how to ski. I'm like, let me take the lessons. They said, no, don't pay the lessons. We'll teach you how to ski. They took me to the highest mountain, and we went down from there, and it was icy on the trail, and their lesson consisted of one word, pizza. They kept saying pizza. Apparently, you're supposed to take your skis and make them in the direction of a slice of pizza, and that's supposed to help slow you down. All I know is that I fell an awful lot, and it just was not a good experience. So, but I'd still like to know one day. I'd like to learn how to ski.
All right. Is there anyone in modern culture you'd stand in line to get a selfie with?
Jamie Holden.
Well, you've had plenty of selfies with me.
Well, let me think. Who would be the person that? Yeah, probably Carson Wentz.
I knew you were going to say that. I was sitting here thinking he's going to say Carson Wentz. That's funny. All right. And finally, hard or soft ice cream?
Hard ice cream.
All right.
Yeah. Toasted coconut from Kilwin's Ice Cream down south.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on a waffle cone.
You like a waffle cone? I like pretzel cones. Those are kind of good. They make ice cream taste really good.
Good.
Well, that was our lightning round there, guys. Well, as we wrap up, Tom, can you give us your best sales pitch for why men need to attend the Courageous Men's Conference?
Yeah, guys, it's not that you need to. You get to. Man, this is just an amazing opportunity for us as guys to get together with other guys and to grow together in Christ. This is geared towards men to be the men God's called us to be. So again, it's not just that. If you look at it just yourself, you could probably reason away, I'm too busy, I've got too much to do, and everything else. There's something that when you bring a group together and you get a group together and you're with other guys and you're encouraging one another, because the difference that you can make in somebody else's life is just tremendous. So be there, inspire other guys around you, bring some guys with you that you know can use some courage. I'm thinking of 4 guys right now that are going through some things that I'm going to invite. When I get done today, I'm going to invite these 4 guys because I'm thinking about this as we've been talking about it. There's 4 guys that I'm going to specifically say, hey, you need to come and you need to be a part of this. This is going to encourage you and help you with what you're dealing with right now in your life. So, again, that's my thought, guys. Do it not just for yourself, but do it for the other guys around you.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for sharing today in the podcast, for being our guest once again. As you know, you're one of my favorite men to minister with, and I'm so glad you could join us today. So thanks again.
Jamie, thank you, buddy. You do a great job, and I appreciate your heart, your passion for ministry. And I'm so glad you've taken the step to become a U.S. missionary as you work hard at helping men to be all that they can be in Christ. Thank you for the role that you play. Jamie, I'm pumped, man. You've taken. We talked about courage, and let me just say that I appreciate the courage that you've taken. What a lot of guys don't know is you live with some pretty significant physical issues in your life. Things that can keep you in bed all day. And you've chosen to put your energy into something that changes guys' lives. And I appreciate the courage that you show. You model that. So in the midst of affliction, you model courage. When most guys, they're dealing with what you're dealing, it's painful just for you to walk from one end of a room to another end. But you'll do that, and you'll take those steps, and you'll make those changes, and you'll do what you need to do because you want to see guys come to Christ and guys grow in Christ and be filled with the Spirit, be broken free from addictions. And thank you for what you do. And thank you for the books that you write. By the way you challenge guys, I'm pretty pumped about that. It's affecting guys in prisons. It's affecting guys in churches, men's groups that are using your books. It's encouraging guys that are new in the faith as well as guys that have been mature in their faith for a long time. So, Jamie, we love you. We support you. We encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because it's making a huge difference. Thank you, Jamie.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. Sometimes I say to Des, I think I'm just too dumb to quit. But I just appreciate that so much. And like I said, thanks so much for being on today.
The Mantour Guy's Final Thought.
Well, for today's Mantour Guy's Final Thought, I wish to expand a little bit more on what Tom was talking about how courageous men deal with their generational issues. And this is something that, unfortunately too many people don't talk about. But we do need to face those generational things, the things that are passed from one generation to another, those learned behaviors. We need to be once and for all face them, admit they're there, and break that cycle. I know in my life, I grew up in a generation of men who are just very angry, who are very abusive, and I learned those behaviors, and I began an angry, abusive man in my own life. And it wasn't until I was willing to stop and realize, I don't want to be this way anymore in my life. And when I'd stop and think, how did I turn like this? What happened? That I could realize I had learned it, I had seen it, I grew up in it. It's all I knew. And I'm not saying I had to blame other people or pass the buck. That's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about noticing the pattern so that you can identify it and break it. You can't get rid of something in your life until you realize it's there. And you need to realize what your generational pattern is, where you got it from, remember how it influenced your life, and then take steps to break it in your life so that it doesn't carry on to another generation. We need to be men who are breaking these cycles so that the next generation and the generations to come have a godly legacy that they carry on instead of continuing the lineup of just the sins and the bondages that have been carried on so many times in our lives. We can be the men that break those patterns, and it's a part of being courageous and having courageous manhood in your life is to once and for all say, I'm tired of these patterns, I'm tired of these sins, and I'm going to be the one that takes action to break them so they don't go into another generation. It's one of the most important things that we as men of God can do. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. And remember, you can still be part of the Courageous Men's Conference. It's taking place at Trinity Life Church in Baltimore, Maryland, October 19th through 20th. Like Tom said, there's a great lineup of speakers. It's a great place to come worship God and to be with other men and to be challenged spiritually and to grow in your walk with God. You do not want to miss it. For more information, visit CourageMen'sConference.com. Also, you can hear Tom speak this year at the Greater Philadelphia Mantour on March 30th, 2019 in Bensalem, PA. For more information on that, visit MantourMinistries.com. Once again, thanks for listening and for giving us your time today to be part of the podcast. Guys, I want to encourage you to be strong, courageous men. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Mantour Guy Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Mantour Guy Podcast. Be sure to visit MantourMinistries.com to learn more about our books, men's ministry resources, and our Mantour conferences.
Before we go, guys, one last thing. We did talk about it in the podcast, but if you sign up with Covenant Eyes at CovenantEyes.com and you use the code MANTOR when you check out, you can receive 1 month of free service. Guys, what do you got to lose? You can try for 30 days, see how great it is, see how helpful it is to your walk with God. I guarantee you're not going to want to get rid of it. You're going to love it. So try it, protect yourself, protect your family, and raise up a standard against the enemy as he is trying to attack you and your loved ones. Try Covenant Eyes for free for 30 days using the code MANTOUR. It's MANTOUR at CovenantEyes.com. Try it today, guys. What do you got to lose?
The Mantour Guy Podcast, helping men grow in their walk with God.